Hello everyone, and welcome to Fresh Master Channel. Today, we are going to have some story from Reddit. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment down below. These simple clips mean a lot to the future of this channel.
Dr. Grayson Bell's hands trembled as he held the recording device, Vexler's voice echoing through the darkness of his study like a serpent's whisper. "You belong to me now, darling. Your husband, your daughter, your precious reputation, I could destroy all of it with a single phone call." The emergency room doors had burst open 12 hours earlier, another cardiac case demanding his attention. A 7-year-old boy whose heart had stopped during soccer practice. As Grayson rushed toward the trauma bay, his phone buzzed. "Don't wait up. Charity gala running late. Kiss Layla goodnight for me." Third time this week, Savannah had missed bedtime with their 8-year-old daughter. "What have we got?" He'd barked at the attending nurse, pulling on fresh gloves. "Cardiac arrest on the field. Father performed CPR until paramedics arrived, stabilized, but needs surgery." 4 hours later, he'd emerged exhausted but triumphant. The boy would live. This was why he became a pediatric cardiac surgeon, to mend broken hearts both literally and figuratively. Driving home through Boston's affluent suburbs, past manicured lawns and colonial mansions, he'd noticed Savannah's Mercedes absent from their Brookline driveway. The babysitter, Jessica, met him at the door. She's been asleep since 9. Had a fever earlier, but it broke around dinner time. Fever? Why hadn't anyone called him? In his study, pouring bourbon, he'd opened his laptop to review surgical notes. But his mind kept drifting to Savannah's increasing absences, her secretive phone calls, the mysterious gifts appearing at their house. Climbing the stairs to check on Layla, he'd noticed her bedroom door ajar. Art supplies scattered across her desk, colored pencils and sketch pads surrounding the elaborate dollhouse that had appeared last month. One particular drawing caught his eye, their family rendered in crayon, but with a fourth figure taller than him, beside a white car. "That's Mommy's friend who brought me the dollhouse," Layla had explained weeks ago. The dollhouse, Victorian mansion complete with miniature furniture. The card, "From Uncle Leon, can't wait to see you again." Now, staring at the drawing in dim hallway light, something cold settled in his stomach. Savannah's communication patterns had grown sparse, responses delayed. When he called her that night, voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Savannah Bell. I'm probably at a fundraising event making magic happen for sick children." The cheerful recording mocked him. She'd returned after 1 a.m., heels clicking against marble. When she slipped into bed, he caught unfamiliar cologne mixed with her perfume. "How was surgery?" she whispered. "Successful? 7-year-old with cardiac arrest?" "That's wonderful. Sorry I missed dinner again." The gala ran late, raised over $200,000 for the children's wing. But her voice carried something hollow, like reading memorized lines. Morning brought another absence. Note on the kitchen counter. Early meeting with donors. Layla sat pushing cereal around her bowl. "Did you sleep okay, Bug?" She nodded, then looked up with perceptive dark eyes. "Daddy, why was Mommy crying in the car yesterday?" His hand froze. "Crying? When?" "When the man with the white car brought me home from school. They were talking really loud and Mommy's face was all red." The man with the white car. The mysterious figure from her drawings. What did they talk about, sweetheart? "I couldn't hear everything, but the man seemed angry. He kept saying something about keeping promises and not being stupid." Chill ran down his spine. "Layla, has this man visited our house before?" "Sometimes when you're at work. Mommy says he's helping with charity stuff." She paused. "I don't like him. He smells weird and talks to Mommy like he's mad at her." "What's his name? Bug?" "Uncle Leon." "But he's not really my uncle, right?" Leon. The dollhouse card. At Boston General, between procedures, he'd fished for information about Leon Vexler, the celebrity plastic surgeon whose name appeared in medical journals and society pages. "Oh, Dr. Vexler?" Nancy from Patient Services brightened. "He's quite the charmer. Very popular with the country club set. Ever heard anything questionable about his practice?" Nancy glanced around, leaned closer. "Well, there are rumors. Some nurses say he can be intense, especially with female patients." During lunch, he'd pulled up Vexler's profile online. Mid-40s, silver hair, practiced smile selling expensive procedures to insecure women. His clinic catered to Boston's elite, promising transformative results and discreet excellence. The client testimonials made his skin crawl. Too many recently divorced women gushing about how Dr. Vexler had rebuilt their confidence. His phone buzzed. Working late again, don't wait up. Decision time. He called Marcus Webb, a private investigator specializing in discreet inquiries for medical professionals. Dr. Bell, what can I do for you? I need someone followed, discreetly. And information about Leon Vexler. Personal or professional? Both, potentially. My rates are $500 a day plus expenses. How far do you want me to dig? As far as necessary. I need to know if my wife is having an affair, and if the man she might be involved with is dangerous. Webb was quiet. That's a combination, Doc. You sure you want to open this door? I'm sure. I'll need photos and details. We should meet, someplace discreet. Cambridge coffee shop, next morning. Webb appeared precisely on time. Compact man with gray hair and unremarkable face, perfect for surveillance work. You look like torment, Doc. I feel worse. He pushed an envelope across the table. Photos of my wife and everything I know about Vexler. Webb examined the contents. Slight tightening around his eyes suggesting recognition. I know Vexler. Worked a case involving him 2 years ago. Different client, similar circumstances. What kind of circumstances? Dr. Vexler has a pattern. Attractive, wealthy women going through emotional transitions. He preys on vulnerability. How? Starts professional. Consultation for procedure, minor enhancement, then personal. Dinner to discuss options, private consultations. Before they know it, they're emotionally dependent. And then he owns them, compromising photos, recorded conversations, financial entanglements. He makes his lovers feel they can't leave without losing everything. Physical blow. The previous case? Husband found out, threatened to expose Vexler. Vexler retaliated by sending the wife's pre-surgery photos to everyone in their social circle. She had a nervous breakdown, attempted self-destruction. Marriage ended in expensive divorce. And Vexler, never charged, technically didn't break laws, just destroyed a family for sport. Savannah wasn't just having an affair. She was being manipulated by a hunter who collected married women like trophies. I need to know everything. How long it's been going on, what he has on her, what his endgame might be. This is going to get ugly, Doc. Men like Vexler don't give up their toys easily. Then I'll have to be smarter than they were. Webb smiled, Hunter recognizing another hunter. All right, Doc, let's take this piece of garbage down. They planned surveillance. Webb would document movements, gather evidence. Grayson would investigate from the medical side. One more thing, guard your daughter closely. If Vexler feels threatened, he might use her as leverage. The thought of that monster near Layla filled him with pure rage. But Webb was right. Emotion was the enemy of effective action. Approach this like complex medical case. Diagnose, formulate treatment plan, execute with precision. That afternoon, between surgeries, he reached out to colleagues. Dr. Patricia Hewitt, psychiatrist treating Vexler's former patients, initially reluctant but became forthcoming when he explained his situation. I've seen the damage he causes. The women who come to me are shells. He breaks them down psychologically, makes them dependent on his approval, then discards them when bored. Has anyone filed charges? They're too ashamed, frightened. He documents everything. Photos, videos, personal confessions. Threat of exposure keeps them silent. That evening, picking up Layla himself, he probed for information about unusual visitors. Mrs. Rodriguez says I'm getting really good at art. She wants to enter my drawing in a contest. Which drawing? The one with our family, but I might change it. How? Quiet moment, staring out window. Maybe I'll take out the scary man with the white car. He doesn't really belong with our family, does he? His 8-year-old daughter's instincts sharper than his own? No, sweetheart. He doesn't belong. At home, helping with homework while monitoring for Savannah's return. She'd texted claiming late charity meeting, but Webb's preliminary surveillance suggested she was at Vexler's penthouse clinic. 9 p.m., phone rang. Webb's voice, tight with urgency. You need to see this, Doc. Meet me at the office. What did you find? Just meet me. Bring someone to watch your daughter. This is going to take a while. Called Jessica, drove to Webb's converted warehouse office. He waited with laptop full of photographs and notes. Your wife's been seeing Vexler for 6 months. Starts innocently, consultation for minor procedure. But look at this. surveillance photos of Savannah entering and leaving Vexler's penthouse. Her body language evolved from professional confidence to something fearful. She's paying him. Large cash withdrawals from your joint account, always under reporting threshold. But the procedures he's supposedly performing don't match payment amounts. What do you mean? She paid $50,000 for consultation and minor enhancement, but medical records show no actual procedures performed. Then what's the money for? Silence, compliance, whatever sick game he's playing. More photos, Savannah leaving Vexler's building disheveled, upset. In one image, clearly crying while Vexler watched from window above with amusement. There's more. I managed to place listening device in building's parking garage. Got interesting audio. He played recording that made Grayson's fists clench. Vexler's cultured voice, smooth as silk. You belong to me now, darling. Don't forget that. Your husband, your daughter, your precious reputation. I could destroy all of it with a single phone call. So when I tell you to come see me, you come. When I tell you to bring money, you bring it. When I tell you to keep your mouth shut, you stay silent. Savannah's barely audible response. Please, Leon, I've done everything you asked. Just please don't hurt my family. Then don't give me a reason to. Recording ended. They sat in silence, processing what they'd heard. His wife wasn't just having an affair. She was being blackmailed, terrorized, systematically destroyed by a man who viewed human beings as objects for amusement. How long has this been going on? Based on financial records and surveillance patterns. At least 6 months, probably longer. He's been bleeding her slowly, psychologically and financially. Joint accounts, mysterious charges he'd noticed but dismissed. Charity donations excessive even for Savannah's fundraising work. Expensive gifts appearing with no clear source. What does he have on her? Webb opened another file. That's where it gets ugly. I think he's been documenting everything, recording sessions, taking photos. Classic blackmail material. Sessions. The man's a hunter, Doc. He doesn't just manipulate emotionally. He documents their humiliation for future leverage. Something cold and sharp crystallized in his chest. This wasn't just infidelity. This was systematic hunter who'd targeted his family, corrupted his wife, potentially endangered his daughter. I want to destroy him. Webb looked at him with approval. Now you're thinking clearly, but we need to be smart. Vexler has destroyed other men who tried to take him down directly. What do you suggest? We build a case, document everything, financial crimes, professional misconduct, maybe criminal coercion, then hit him with everything at once, professional, legal, and social destruction. Surgeon in him appreciated methodical approach. You didn't cut randomly. You identified problem, planned procedure, executed with precision. What do you need from me? Access to financial records, your wife's phone and computer if possible, and time. This is going to take weeks, maybe months. How long before he figures out we're investigating? If we're careful, he might never know until too late. But Doc, this man is dangerous. If he suspects you're onto him, he might escalate. Use your daughter as leverage, destroy your wife publicly, ruin your career. Layla's drawings, her talk of scary man who brought gifts and made her mother cry. He's already involved my daughter. That was his mistake. Just remember, goal is to take him down permanently, not give him excuse to hurt your family first. Next 3 weeks passed in carefully orchestrated dance of deception. By day, maintained facade of normalcy, performing surgeries, playing devoted but oblivious husband. By night, worked with Webb building case against Vexler. Financial picture became clearer first. Savannah had siphoned nearly $250,000 from their accounts over 6 months, using complex web of charitable donations and medical expenses to hide transfers. But Webb's forensic accounting revealed truth. Most money ended up in offshore accounts controlled by shell companies, registered to Vexler's aliases. Classic extortion pattern, Webb explained. Starts with small amounts, claims for procedures or investments, then gradually increases demands while providing psychological justification. Audio surveillance provided more evidence. Vexler's voice, recorded through strategically placed devices, revealed man who viewed psychological manipulation as art form. You're being dramatic, darling. I'm not destroying your marriage. I'm simply helping you understand your priorities. Your husband is a surgeon, not a mind reader. If you don't tell him about our arrangement, how can he be hurt by it? This isn't an arrangement. This is extortion. Such ugly words. I prefer to think of it as mutually beneficial relationship. You receive my discretion and professional services. I receive compensation for my time and expertise. You're sick. I'm practical. And you're going to bring me another 50,000 next week. Or your husband receives some very interesting photographs along with detailed billing records for services he never authorized. But it was video evidence that pushed him over the edge. Webb had accessed security footage from parking garage of Vexler's building. Clips showed Savannah entering and leaving at various times, demeanor growing more defeated with each visit. But one particular video, dated 3 days earlier, showed something that made his vision go red with rage. Layla was with her, his 8-year-old daughter, walking beside her mother toward Vexler's private elevator, holding hand of woman being systematically destroyed by Hunter. Timestamps showed they'd been in building over 2 hours. He's escalating, Webb said grimly. Involving your daughter is power play. He's showing your wife he can touch any part of her life whenever he wants. That monster had my child in his presence for 2 hours. Doc, I know you're angry, but... Angry. He turned to face Webb, and whatever Webb saw made him step back. Angry doesn't begin to describe what I'm feeling right now. Beyond anger. He was in that cold, crystalline state of mind that came during most complex surgeries, emotions locked away, every faculty focused on task at hand. Vexler had crossed uncrossable line. He'd involved his daughter in sick games, and that meant he needed to be stopped, permanently. We're accelerating the timeline. What do you mean? How long to finish gathering evidence? Webb consulted notes. Another week. Maybe 2 to have everything bulletproof. Too long. He's escalating, which means Layla's in increasing danger. We move now. Doc, if we move too fast, if we move too slow, that monster gets another opportunity to traumatize my daughter. I won't let that happen. That night, he made decision that would haunt him for rest of his life. He installed listening device in Savannah's phone, violation of trust that felt like poison in his mouth, but necessary to protect his family. Conversations recorded over next 48 hours painted picture of woman being systematically broken by master manipulator. Vexler called her twice daily, sometimes just to remind her of his power. His voice carried smooth confidence of man who'd perfected psychological torture. Did you tell your husband about our little arrangement yet? You know I can't do that. Can't or won't? There's a difference, darling. One suggests impossibility, the other suggests choice. He'll leave me. Take Layla. I'll lose everything. Only if you make this complicated. I've told you, there's simple solution. Your husband is wealthy man with excellent insurance. Accidents happen, especially to surgeons who work such long hours. Implication hit him like physical blow. He wasn't just blackmailing his wife. He was suggesting she arrange for something to happen to him. I won't hurt Grayson, Savannah whispered. Then you'll keep paying, and you'll bring Layla to visit more often. The child seems quite fond of her Uncle Leon. He'd had to leave room, rage threatening to overwhelm carefully maintained control. In his study, called Webb. Emergency meeting. In now. Doc, it's midnight. He's threatening my daughter and suggesting my wife arrange an accident. We're out of time. Webb arrived within an hour. Spread across desk were photographs, financial records, audio transcripts, and video stills painting comprehensive picture of Vexler's crimes. This is enough, Webb said after reviewing everything. Financial fraud, extortion, possibly conspiracy charges. We can destroy him legally. Legal destruction takes time. Appeals, delays, technicalities. Meanwhile, he's free to hurt other families. What are you suggesting? He met Webb's eyes steadily. Complete destruction. Professional, financial, social, legal, everything at once. I want him to lose everything he cares about in a single day. Webb grinned. Now you're talking my language, Doc. But this kind of coordinated attack requires perfect timing and multiple moving parts. Then let's get started. They spent rest of night planning Operation Scalpel, comprehensive campaign designed to cut Vexler out of society like malignant tumor. 5 components. First, gather testimony from other sufferers and medical colleagues to build professional misconduct case with state medical board. Second, Webb would coordinate with federal authorities to investigate Vexler's financial crimes and potential tax evasion. Third, leak most damaging evidence to investigative journalists with major media outlets. Fourth, File for emergency custody of Layla and divorce proceedings against Savannah, using recorded conversations as evidence of endangerment. Fifth, release everything simultaneously to maximize damage and prevent Vexler from controlling narrative. The key is coordination, Webb emphasized. If any component launches before others, he'll have time to cover tracks or retaliate. Next morning of Operation Scalpel began like any other, but he could feel electricity crackling beneath the surface of routine. He performed 2 scheduled surgeries with mechanical precision, hands steady despite earthquake he was about to trigger. At 11 a.m., called Catherine Stowe, most ruthless divorce attorney in Boston. Dr. Bell, I've reviewed the materials you sent. This is extensive. Can you file today? Emergency custody based on endangerment? Absolutely. But doctor, once we pull this trigger, there's no going back. Your wife will be publicly humiliated. Your private life will become court record, and your daughter will be caught in crossfire. He thought about Layla's drawings, her frightened questions about scary man, Vexler's threat to distribute images of her online. My daughter is already in danger. At least this way I can protect her. I'll need you here by 2 p.m. to sign papers. We're filing for emergency hearing tomorrow morning. At noon, met with Dr. Patricia Hewitt, psychiatrist who'd been treating Vexler's previous sufferers. She'd agreed to testify about psychological damage he inflicted on families. I've prepared comprehensive report, clinical documentation of his methods, case studies of other sufferers, professional assessment of danger he poses to your family. Will it be enough? For custody? Yes. For criminal charges? That depends on how much evidence your investigator has gathered. Webb had spent morning coordinating with federal authorities and several journalists. Plan was elegantly simple. At 3 p.m., everything would launch simultaneously. State Medical Board would receive formal complaints supported by multiple sufferer testimonies. FBI would execute search warrants on Vexler's office and financial records. 3 major news outlets would publish exposés detailing his carnivory practices. And he would file for emergency custody of Layla while simultaneously serving Savannah with divorce papers. Beauty of coordinated attack was that Vexler couldn't control or contain narrative. By time he realized what was happening, his professional life would be in ruins. Finances frozen. Crimes splashed across every major news outlet in New England. At 1:30 p.m., phone rang. Savannah's voice barely recognizable, hollow, defeated, terrified. Grayson, I need to see you. It's important. I'm at the hospital. Can it wait until? No, please, meet me at home. I need to tell you something. Desperation in her voice told him Vexler had given her his ultimatum. She was finally ready to confess, probably hoping to negotiate mercy before his deadline expired. But too late for confessions. Machinery of justice already in motion. I'll be there in an hour. Called Webb to confirm timeline hadn't changed, then drove home through streets that seemed to shimmer with possibility. For months, he'd felt powerless, sufferer of circumstances he couldn't understand or control. Today, taking back his life, Savannah waiting in living room, still wearing clothes from when she'd left Vexler's penthouse night before. Hands shook as she attempted to pour coffee, cup rattling against saucer. Sit down. Tell me what's wrong. She collapsed into her favorite chair, one she'd picked when they'd first bought house, back when they were still happy. Tears streamed as she struggled to find words. I've done something terrible, Grayson. Something unforgivable. He sat across from her, maintaining facade of ignorant concern. Whatever it is, we can work through it together. No, we can't. Not this time. She wiped eyes with trembling hands. I've been seeing someone. Another man. He let appropriate shock register on his face. Seeing someone? You mean having an affair for months? And it's not just that. I've been giving him money. Our money. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Savannah, I don't understand. Why would you? Because he made me. Words exploded out of her like crimson from severed artery. He's been blackmailing me, threatening to destroy our family if I don't do what he says, and now... She dissolved into sobs. Now what? Now he wants me to arrange for something to happen to you. An accident. So he can collect on your life insurance. He let horror of her words sink in, face cycling through disbelief, betrayal, and growing anger. Who is this man? Leon Vexler. He's a plastic surgeon. I went to him for consultation about minor procedure, and he seduced me, made me feel beautiful, special. Then He started recording everything: photos, videos, conversations. When I tried to end it, he threatened to send everything to you, to medical board, to everyone we know. How long has this been going on? 8 months? Maybe longer? I don't even remember when it started feeling like blackmail instead of romance. She looked up with eyes full of self-loathing. I know you'll never forgive me. I know this destroys everything, but I couldn't let him hurt you. Had to tell you. He walked to window, ostensibly gathering thoughts, but actually checking time. 2:45 p.m. In 15 minutes, Vexler's world would begin collapsing around him. What does he have on you? Everything. Photos of me, compromising situations, audio recordings where I talk about our marriage problems, financial records showing all the money I've given him. And her voice broke completely. And what? He took pictures of Layla when I brought her to his office. He said if I don't cooperate, he'll put them online, claim she was there for inappropriate reasons. Rage that filled him was so pure it was almost transcendent. But he forced it down, maintaining role as shocked, betrayed husband learning about his family's destruction for first time. Where is he now? His office. He gave me until tonight to bring him insurance documents and plan for your accident. He turned back to face her, letting calculated fury enter his voice. You brought our daughter to see this monster. You stole from our family to pay a blackmailer. You've been lying to me for 8 months while I worried about your health, your happiness, our marriage. I know how terrible I've been. Do you? Do you really understand what you've done? Before she could answer, phone rang. Webb's voice crisp with anticipation. All teams are in position, Doc. Ready to execute on your signal. Do it. Do what? Savannah asked, confused by one-sided conversation. He ended call and looked at his wife, woman who'd shared his bed, raised his child, and planned his destruction to satisfy Hunter's demands. Justice. At exactly 3 p.m., Operation Scalpel launched with military precision. Webb's federal contacts executed search warrants on Vexler's office, home, and financial records. State Medical Board received formal complaints from 5 different sufferers, supported by documented evidence of professional misconduct. 3 major news outlets published simultaneous exposés detailing his history of targeting vulnerable women, and he served Savannah with divorce papers while filing for emergency custody of Layla. What is this? She whispered, reading legal documents with growing horror. This is me protecting our daughter from consequences of your choices. Grayson, please. We can work this out. I'll testify against him. I'll do whatever. You'll do exactly what court orders you to do. Nothing more, nothing less. Phone buzzed with updates from Webb. Vexler had been arrested at his office on charges of financial fraud and extortion. Medical license suspended pending investigation. Assets frozen by federal order. Local news already running breaking stories about society surgeons scandal. By evening, Vexler's name would be synonymous with carnivore manipulation and criminal exploitation. You planned this, Savannah said, voice flat with realization. You knew everything. I suspected. I investigated. I gathered evidence, and I acted to protect our daughter from monster you brought into our lives. I was trying to protect her too, and you. By stealing our money? By bringing her to see a manipulative hunter? By discussing plans for my elimination? Fight went out of her like air from punctured lung. You recorded our conversations. I documented criminal conspiracy. Same way I document medical procedures. Carefully, thoroughly, and with full legal authority. She stared at him as if seeing stranger. Who are you? This isn't the man I married. The man you married was naive enough to trust blindly. That man gone the moment you endangered our daughter to protect your secret life. Custody hearing next morning was surgical procedure in itself. Precise, methodical, devastating. Catherine Stowe presented their evidence with clinical efficiency, while Savannah's attorney scrambled to mount defense against recordings, financial documents, and psychiatric testimony. Judge Margaret Chen, woman who'd built reputation on protecting children from dysfunctional families, listened to audio of Vexler threatening to distribute images of Layla online. Her expression grew colder with each revelation. Mrs. Bell, you brought your 8-year-old daughter to multiple meetings with man who was blackmailing you? I thought it would look more innocent if... You thought exposing your child to a manipulative hunter would look innocent? I was desperate. I wasn't thinking clearly. Indeed. Judge Chen reviewed notes. You also discussed plans for your husband's end with this same individual? He forced me to listen to his ideas. I never agreed to anything. But you didn't report these threats to police. I was scared. He said he'd destroy our family if I told anyone. Instead, you participated in stealing nearly $250,000 from your family's accounts to pay this individual. Savannah's attorney objected to characterization, but financial records spoke for themselves. Catherine presented bank statements, wire transfer receipts, and audio recordings that painted comprehensive picture of financial fraud committed over 8 months. Hewitt testified about psychological damage Vexler inflicted on families, way he systematically isolated sufferers from support systems. In my professional opinion, Mrs. Bell's judgment has been severely compromised by prolonged psychological manipulation. She poses risk to her daughter's safety not through malicious intent, but through demonstrated inability to protect child from carnivore influences. When it was over, Judge Chen's ruling was swift and comprehensive. Emergency custody is granted to Dr. Bell. Mrs. Bell will have supervised visitation rights pending psychological evaluation and family counseling. Court finds credible evidence that minor child was exposed to inappropriate and potentially dangerous situations due to Mrs. Bell's compromised judgment. Savannah collapsed in hallway outside courtroom, sobs echoing off marble walls. He felt no satisfaction in her destruction, only grim relief of surgeon who'd successfully removed malignant tumor. "Daddy?" Layla's voice was small and confused when he picked her up from school that afternoon. "Where's Mommy?" "Mommy's going to stay somewhere else for a while, Bug. She's sick, and she needs help getting better." "Is it because of Scary Man?" "Scary Man won't bother us anymore. He's gone away forever." She nodded with 8-year-old acceptance of adult complexities beyond her comprehension. "Are you sad about Mommy?" He thought about question carefully. Was he sad? Or just empty? "I'm sad that Mommy made some bad choices, but I'm happy that you're safe." "Me too," she said, then added with devastating innocence. "Can we have pizza for dinner? Mommy never let us have pizza on school nights." That evening, he sat in study reading news coverage of Vexler's arrest. Stories painted him as hunter who destroyed multiple families while building fortune on blackmail and exploitation. Former patients coming forward with similar stories of manipulation and coercion. Webb called with updates on criminal case. Federal prosecutors confident they can make financial charges stick. Racketeering, tax evasion, wire fraud, he's looking at serious prison time. What about other sufferers? 3 more women have come forward since story broke. DA thinks there might be dozens of sufferers over years. He thought about Savannah, about other wives and mothers Vexler had targeted and destroyed. Will they be able to rebuild their lives? Some will. Others? Webb's voice trailed off. What about your wife? What about her? You going to try for a reconciliation? He looked at divorce papers on desk, at custody order that gave him sole responsibility for raising Layla. Some wounds don't heal, Webb. Some betrayals can't be forgiven, even if she was manipulated. She chose to bring our daughter into that monster's presence. She chose to discuss plans for my elimination. Manipulation explains her behavior. It doesn't excuse it. 6 months after Vexler's arrest, he stood in witness box of Suffolk County Superior Court, hand resting on worn Bible as he swore to tell truth about man who'd tried to destroy his family. Courtroom packed with journalists, former sufferers, and curious observers drawn by sensational details of society's surgeon scandal. Vexler sat at defendant's table in orange jumpsuit that had replaced expensive suits, silver hair now dull and unkempt. Confident hunter who'd terrorized his wife had been reduced to hollow-eyed shell, facing multiple felony charges and collapse of everything he'd built. "Dr. Bell," prosecutor began, "please tell court how you first became aware of defendant's relationship with your wife." He recounted story methodically, Layla's drawings, mysterious gifts, financial irregularities that had prompted his investigation. Jury listened with rapt attention as he described discovering wife's blackmail and threat to his daughter. When you heard defendant suggest that your wife arranged accident for you, what was your reaction? I realized I wasn't dealing with simple adulterer, he said, meeting Vexler's eyes across courtroom. I was dealing with Hunter, who viewed my family as objects for his entertainment. Vexler's defense attorney, sharp-faced woman named Patricia Williams, rose for cross-examination. She'd built strategy around portraying her client as sufferer of entrapment, claiming he'd manipulated evidence to frame innocent man. Dr. Bell, isn't it true that you hired private investigator to stalk my client? I hired investigator to document criminal activity. His voice remained steady, controlled. Criminal activity you only suspected at that point? I suspected infidelity. I discovered extortion, blackmail, and conspiracy. Conspiracy you allegedly overheard through illegally obtained recordings? Catherine had prepared him for this line of attack. Recordings were obtained legally under Massachusetts law, which allows one-party consent for conversations involving threats to personal safety. Williams stepped closer, her voice rising with calculated aggression. Dr. Bell, isn't it convenient that you happened to record these conversations just when they became most incriminating? I recorded them because my wife was being threatened and my daughter was in danger. Or because you wanted to destroy your wife's relationship and frame an innocent man? Innocent? Grayson's control slipped for just a moment, allowing genuine anger to color his voice. Your client threatened to distribute images of my 8-year-old daughter online. He suggested my wife arrange for my elimination. You call that innocent? Williams had pushed too far. Several jurors looked disgusted by her line of questioning. She quickly shifted tactics, but the damage was done. Dr. Bell, you've admitted to violating your wife's privacy, hiring investigators to follow her, and secretly recording private conversations. How is that different from what you accuse my client of doing? Grayson met her eyes steadily. The difference, counselor, is that everything I did was to protect my family from a hunter. Everything your client did was to exploit and destroy families for his own twisted pleasure. Williams spent another hour trying to paint him as vindictive husband who'd fabricated evidence to destroy innocent man. But financial records, audio recordings, and sufferer testimonies formed unshakable foundation of fact. Each time she attacked his credibility, she only reinforced the jury's perception that she was defending a monster. When she finished, he stepped down from witness box and took seat in gallery. Webb, sitting beside him, leaned over to whisper, "She's good, but she's got nothing. Evidence is too strong." Over next 3 days, prosecutor Elizabeth Santos methodically dismantled Vexler's defense. She presented testimony from 7 different sufferers, financial experts who traced money laundering operation, and recordings that revealed scope of his carnivory behavior. Most powerful testimony came from Dr. Sarah Martinez, prominent psychiatrist who'd been one of Vexler's earliest sufferers. She described how he'd gradually isolated her from husband and children, using compromising photos and fabricated evidence to maintain control. "He made me feel like I was going insane," she said, voice breaking as she gripped the witness stand. "Every time I tried to resist, he'd show me new evidence of my betrayal of my family. Photos he'd taken without consent, conversations he'd recorded, medical records he'd fabricated. By end, I believed I deserved everything he did to me." Her hands shook as she continued, tears streaming down her face. "He would call me at all hours, demanding money, threatening to destroy my children's futures if I didn't comply. He made me believe I was a terrible mother, a worthless wife, a failure as a doctor." "How much money did you give defendant over course of your relationship?" "Nearly $300,000. My children's college funds, my retirement savings, money I borrowed against house. When that ran out..." She paused, gathering strength while the courtroom held its breath. "When that ran out, what happened?" "He suggested I take out life insurance policy on my husband. Said accidents happened all time in high-stress professions. He made it sound so reasonable, so logical." That's when I knew I had lost my mind completely. Murmur ran through courtroom. Several jurors looked physically ill. "Did you comply with this suggestion?" "I tried, but my husband noticed paperwork and started asking questions. That's when Dr. Vexler decided I was more trouble than I was worth." "What did he do?" "He sent every compromising photo and recording to my husband, my colleagues, my children's schools. He destroyed my marriage, my career, my relationship with my children, all because I couldn't arrange my husband's end for his profit. Dr. Martinez's marriage had ended in bitter divorce. She'd lost medical license, her home, and custody of her children. Woman who took stand was shadow of successful psychiatrist Wexler had initially targeted. But she'd survived, and she'd found courage to testify against man who'd destroyed her life. Evidence phase concluded with Webb's testimony about investigation. He walked jury through surveillance footage, financial analysis, and coordinated operation that had brought Wexler down. In your professional opinion, how many sufferers do you estimate defendant has claimed over his career? Based on financial records and witness testimony, at least 20 women over past decade, possibly more who haven't come forward. And total financial damage? Conservatively, $6 to $8 million stolen from families through extortion and blackmail. Defense's case lasted less than a day. Williams called character witnesses who testified about Wexler's charitable work and professional excellence. She presented expert testimony claiming audio recordings had been manipulated. She argued that her client was guilty of poor judgment, not criminal conspiracy. But she couldn't explain financial records. She couldn't refute testimony of multiple sufferers who'd never met each other but described identical patterns of manipulation. And she certainly couldn't explain away recording of Wexler discussing plans for his elimination. Closing arguments began on Friday morning. Santos delivered methodical dismantling of Wexler's defense, walking jury through each piece of evidence and its implications. This man preyed on vulnerable women during most difficult periods of their lives. He exploited their pain for profit, then discarded them when they'd served his purposes. He threatened children to maintain control over their mothers. He suggested arranging eliminations of innocent husbands to access life insurance money. This isn't case about poor judgment or professional misconduct. This is case about hunter who destroyed families for sport. Williams's closing focused on reasonable doubt and possibility that he'd orchestrated elaborate frame job. But her arguments felt desperate, built on speculation rather than evidence. Jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, Foreman, middle-aged man with kind eyes and calloused hands, stood to deliver verdict. On charge of racketeering in first degree, we find defendant guilty. On charge of extortion in first degree, we find defendant guilty. On charge of money laundering in first degree, we find defendant guilty. Guilty verdicts continued for 20 minutes, covering every charge prosecution had filed. When it was over, Wexler had been convicted on 37 felony counts carrying potential sentence of life in prison. He showed no emotion as verdicts were read, staring straight ahead with blank expression of man who'd finally run out of options. But when court security moved to escort him back to cell, his eyes found Grayson's across courtroom. For just a moment, Hunter's mask slipped. He saw raw hatred in his gaze, fury of man who'd been outmaneuvered by someone he'd underestimated. He mouthed something he couldn't hear, but message was clear. This wasn't over. Grayson smiled and mouthed back single word. It's over. Sentencing hearing took place 3 weeks later. Judge Patricia Romano, stern woman with 30 years of experience handling violent criminals, listened to sufferer impact statements for 2 hours before addressing Wexler directly. Dr. Wexler, you used your position of trust and authority to systematically exploit vulnerable women. You preyed on their insecurities, manipulated their emotions, and destroyed their families for financial gain. You threatened children and suggested elimination of innocent spouses. In 30 years on this bench, I have rarely encountered such calculated cruelty. She sentenced him to 45 years in state prison without possibility of parole, effectively life sentence for man in his 50s. As Wexler was led away in shackles, Grayson felt profound sense of closure. Hunter, who'd threatened his family, was gone forever. Justice had been served with surgical precision, but his personal healing was far from complete. Savannah had undergone intensive therapy during trial, working with Dr. Hewitt to address psychological trauma Wexler had inflicted. A woman who emerged from 6 months of treatment was different from one who'd confessed her sins in their living room. Stronger in some ways, but permanently scarred by experience. They met for coffee on Thursday afternoon, 2 weeks after Wexler's sentencing. She looked healthier than she had in years, having gained back weight she'd lost during ordeal. But there was fragility to her that hadn't existed before, as if she might shatter if handled too roughly. "How's Layla?" she asked, stirring latte with nervous energy. "She's doing well. Therapy has helped. She still asks about you." "I know, Doctor. Hewitt says supervised visits are going well." "They are. But Layla needs stability more than she needs access to either of us. Court's custody arrangement protects her from further trauma." Savannah nodded. accepting implicit message that their family would never be whole again. I want you to know that I understand why you did what you did. Investigation, recordings, coordination with federal authorities. You were protecting our daughter. I was protecting both of you. You just couldn't see it at time. I know, and I'm grateful, even if it destroyed our marriage. They sat in silence for a while. Two people who'd shared 12 years of their lives, but no longer had common future. Love that had built their family was still there, buried beneath layers of betrayal and necessary choices, but it was no longer enough to bridge gap between them. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? He considered question carefully. I've already forgiven you for affair, for financial theft, even for discussing plans for my elimination. You were being manipulated by Master Hunter. But I can't forgive you for bringing Layla into his presence, for exposing our daughter to monster because you were too ashamed to ask for help. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she didn't argue. I know. I live with that knowledge every day. Good. That shame is only guarantee I have that you'll never make such choice again. They parted without touching. Two strangers who'd once been everything to each other. Divorce would be finalized within month, ending their marriage with same clinical precision he brought to surgery. That evening, he tucked Layla into bed and read her favorite story about brave princess who saved herself. When he finished, she looked up with those wise 8-year-old eyes. Daddy, do you miss Mommy? Sometimes. Do you? I miss old Mommy. Before she got sick and started making bad choices. Old Mommy misses you too, Bug. That's why she's working so hard to get better. Will she ever come home? He chose words carefully. Mommy lives somewhere else now, but she'll always be your mother and she'll always love you. Layla nodded with acceptance children show toward adult complexities they can't fully understand. Will you always love me, Daddy? Forever and always, little Bug. Nothing will ever change that. After she fell asleep, he sat in study an open letter that had arrived that morning. It was from Dr. Sarah Martinez, psychiatrist who testified so powerfully at Vexler's trial. Dr. Bell, she'd written, I wanted to thank you for having courage to fight when so many of us couldn't. Watching Vexler's conviction gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope that justice is still possible in this world. I also wanted you to know that I'm rebuilding my life. I've started support group for women who've been victimized by carnivore professionals. We meet twice a week to share our experiences and help each other heal. If your wife would like information about group, please don't hesitate to contact me. Your daughter is lucky to have father who was willing to pay any price to protect her. Hold on to that truth during difficult days ahead. He folded letter and placed it in desk drawer next to final divorce papers and Layla's latest drawing. Picture of just two of them, standing in front of their house with genuine smiles on their faces. Some surgeries saved patient completely. Others required amputation to prevent spread of disease. His family had survived, but in form he'd never imagined when he'd first suspected Savannah's affair. Layla and he were building new life together, one defined not by what they'd lost, but by what they learned about themselves in crucible of crisis. She was stronger than he'd given her credit for, more resilient and perceptive than any 8-year-old should have to be. And he had discovered reserves of determination and ruthlessness he'd never known he possessed. Naive surgeon who'd trusted blindly was gone, replaced by man who understood that sometimes love meant being willing to destroy what you cherished most in order to save what mattered most. Vexler was gone, removed from society like malignant tumor. Savannah was healing, learning to rebuild life free from his manipulation. And Layla was safe, surrounded by unconditional love of father, who would never again underestimate lengths he'd go to protect her. Scalpel had cut deep, but patient would survive. In end, that was all any surgeon could ask for. Month later, he received call from Webb. Vexler had passed in his cell under unexplained circumstances, sufferer of what officials termed complications arising from his refusal to seek protective custody. Apparently, other inmates had learned about his crimes against children and had delivered their own form of justice. He felt no satisfaction in his end, only quiet relief of the surgeon who'd successfully removed cancer. Some diseases, once eliminated, could never return. Doc? Webb's voice carried note of concern. You okay? I'm fine, he said, and meant it. Justice was served. Yeah, but still, Webb, some people forfeit their right to exist in civilized society. Wexler made that choice when he threatened children to control their mothers. That evening, he told Layla that scary man would never bother anyone ever again. She nodded. I'm glad you're my dad. I'm glad you're my daughter. Forever and always? Forever and always. Outside, Boston glittered in darkness, full of other families facing their own crises and challenges. But inside their house, father and daughter built new traditions on foundation of hard-won wisdom and unshakable love. Scalpel rested in its case, sharp and clean and ready, just in case it was ever needed again.